Kingston, England, a town brimming with life yet holding a quiet charm. Here lived Jacob, a man of simple pleasures. His world revolved around his wife and two young children. Laughter filled their modest home, echoing the joy within their hearts. Weekends were dedicated to family outings, picnics in the park, trips to the seaside, and cozy evenings by the fire. Their love was a warm embrace against the world's chill. Jacob's days were painted with the hues of domestic bliss. He cherished the mundane routines, the shared meals, the bedtime stories. His heart swelled with pride as he watched his children grow, his wife, his anchor, his confidant. Together they had built a sanctuary of love and happiness, a world untouched by shadows, untainted by fear, a life most men only dreamed of. The decision weighed heavily on Jacob's mind. London, a city of dreams and ambition, beckoned him with its promise of prosperity. But leaving Kingston meant leaving behind the familiar comfort of his family's embrace. He wrestled with the dilemma, torn between his desire for a better future and the fear of disrupting the idyllic life they had built together. The nights were filled with discussions, weighing the pros and cons, the hopes and anxieties. Finally, after much deliberation, Jacob made his choice. He accepted the offer, his heart heavy yet filled with a sense of purpose. He promised his family that he would return home as often as possible, that London wouldn't steal him away completely. His words, though laced with uncertainty, were a balm to their worried hearts. He assured them that this was for them, for a future filled with even greater happiness. The day of departure arrived, a bittersweet moment etched in their memories. Tears mingled with smiles as Jacob embraced his wife and children. His heart ached with the separation, but he held on to the hope of a swift reunion. He boarded the train to London, leaving behind a piece of himself in Kingston. He carried with him the weight of his family's love and the promise of a better tomorrow. The journey to London was a blur of changing landscapes and introspective thoughts. As the train sped through the countryside, Jacob's mind raced with anticipation and apprehension. He wondered what awaited him in the bustling metropolis. He envisioned a future filled with success and prosperity, but a nagging doubt lingered in the back of his mind. Could he truly find happiness away from the warmth of his family's love? Upon arriving in London, Jacob was met by his new manager, a stern yet welcoming man. He led Jacob to his new accommodation, a two-bedroom house located near the factory. The house, though spacious, felt strangely empty. Its rooms echoed with an unfamiliar silence, a stark contrast to the lively atmosphere of his Kingston home. Jacob settled in, unpacking his belongings, trying to create a semblance of familiarity in this unfamiliar space. He quickly adapted to his demanding work schedule, immersing himself in the intricacies of his new role as assistant manager. The days were long and arduous, filled with meetings, reports, and the constant pressure of meeting targets. He worked tirelessly, driven by his desire to prove himself and to secure a better future for his family. He found solace in the rhythm of work, a distraction from the gnawing loneliness that crept into his evenings. The weekends, once filled with family laughter, now stretched before him, vast and empty. He missed the warmth of his wife's embrace, the playful banter of his children. The silence of the house was a constant reminder of their absence. He tried to fill the void with work, but it was a futile attempt to escape the loneliness that gnawed at his soul. He longed for the familiar comforts of home, for the simple joys he had taken for granted. One weekend, seeking respite from the oppressive solitude, Jacob decided to venture out. He wandered through the bustling streets of London, feeling like a stranger in a strange land. He stumbled upon a local cinema, its bright lights promising a temporary escape from his reality. Little did he know that this seemingly innocuous decision would forever alter the course of his life, leading him down a path of love and terror he could never have imagined. London, a city of dreams and shadows, embraced Jacob with its bustling energy. He navigated the crowded streets, a solitary figure amidst the throngs of people. The city's vibrant pulse both invigorated and overwhelmed him. He felt a strange disconnect, a sense of being both present and absent. Here, time seemed to accelerate, driven by the relentless pursuit of ambition. Jacob found himself caught up in the current, swept along by the demands of his new life. He became a chameleon, blending into the urban landscape, yet always feeling like an outsider looking in. The factory loomed large in Jacob's life, dictating his days and consuming his thoughts. He was a cog in the machine, a vital part of the factory's intricate mechanism. He worked long hours, pushing himself to meet targets. Determined to prove himself, he poured all his energy into his work. The factory became his sanctuary, a place to escape loneliness. He forged new connections and found a sense of belonging. Jacob maintained his commitment to his family, writing letters and making phone calls. The evenings were the hardest. When the city's noise subsided and the factory fell silent, the emptiness of Jacob's house became unbearable. The silence magnified his loneliness. He wandered through the empty rooms, his footsteps echoing on the wooden floors, a constant reminder of his isolation. He missed the warmth of his family's presence, the comforting sounds of their laughter. He tried to fill the void with books, music, and the occasional visit to the local pub, but nothing could truly dispel the sense of emptiness. He found himself staring out the window at the city lights, imagining his family safe and sound in their Kingston home. He longed for their touch, their voices, their presence. He felt like a ship lost at sea, adrift in a vast ocean of loneliness. He began to question his decision to move to London. Was the sacrifice worth it? Was the pursuit of a better future worth the pain of separation from his loved ones? He wrestled with these questions, his mind a battlefield of conflicting emotions. He knew he had made the right choice for his family's financial security, but the emotional toll was heavier than he had anticipated. He felt like a stranger in his own life, a ghost haunting the empty shell of his London existence. He started to notice the smallest details of his surroundings, the cracks in the walls, the dust motes dancing in the sunlight, the creaking of the floorboards beneath his feet. The house seemed to take on a life of its own, its silence filled with whispers and shadows. He tried to dismiss it as his imagination, a byproduct of his loneliness, but a nagging unease settled in his heart. He felt like he was being watched, observed by unseen eyes. He started to question his sanity, wondering if the isolation was taking its toll on his mind. One weekend, seeking a distraction, Jacob ventured out. He wandered through the streets of London, drawn to the bright lights of a local cinema. He purchased a ticket, his heart filled with a flicker of hope. As he entered the darkened theater, he felt a wave of relief. He found a seat and settled in, letting the darkness envelop him. He lost himself in the flickering images, transported to a world of adventure. He forgot, for a brief moment, the weight of his loneliness. During the intermission, Jacob found himself drawn to a woman sitting a few rows ahead. Her beauty captivated him, her smile a beacon in the dim light. He felt a surge of hope, a spark of excitement. He took a deep breath and began to walk towards her, his heart pounding. He knew his life was about to change, stepping into the unknown. Jacob, emboldened by a sudden surge of confidence, approached the woman. He introduced himself, his voice slightly trembling with a mixture of nervousness and excitement. Her name was Elara, and her smile as she returned his greeting was as radiant as he had imagined. They struck up a conversation, discussing the film, their lives, their dreams. He found himself drawn to her intelligence, her wit, and her captivating charm. The cinema, once a refuge from his loneliness, now became a stage for a new beginning. Elara, too, seemed intrigued by Jacob. She listened intently as he spoke, her eyes sparkling with interest. She shared her own stories, her experiences, her vulnerabilities. They discovered a shared love for literature, a mutual appreciation for art, and a similar sense of humor. The conversation flowed effortlessly, the time melting away as they delved deeper into each other's worlds. The crowded theater faded into the background, their connection creating a bubble of intimacy amidst the bustling crowd. As the intermission ended, Jacob felt a pang of disappointment. He didn't want the conversation to end, the connection to fade. He impulsively invited Elara for a drink at a nearby pub, his heart pounding in his chest as he awaited her response. To his delight, she accepted, her smile widening as she agreed to continue their conversation. He felt a surge of hope, a sense of possibility he hadn't felt in months. The chance encounter, a flicker of light in the darkness of his London existence. They left the cinema, stepping out into the bustling streets of London. The city, once a symbol of his isolation, now felt vibrant and alive. Elara's presence transformed his perception, painting the urban landscape with new colors. As they walked towards the pub, their conversation continued, their laughter echoing in the night air. Jacob felt a lightness in his step, a sense of anticipation for the unfolding story of their connection. The chance encounter, a seed of hope planted in the fertile ground of his lonely heart. The pub, a warm and inviting space, became the backdrop for their burgeoning romance. They sat in a cozy corner, their conversation flowing effortlessly from film to literature, from dreams to aspirations. Jacob found himself captivated by Elara's stories, her experiences, her unique perspective on the world. He listened intently, his heart swelling with a mixture of admiration and affection. Elara, in turn, seemed equally drawn to Jacob. She appreciated his kindness, his intelligence, his quiet strength. They discovered a shared sense of humor, a mutual appreciation for the absurd, and a similar outlook on life. Their laughter filled the pub, their connection creating a bubble of warmth amidst the bustling crowd. As the night drew to a close, Jacob felt a reluctance to part ways. He extended an invitation for dinner the following evening, his heart filled with hope as Elara accepted. The dinner date was a resounding success. Jacob prepared a simple meal, his nervousness masked by a newfound sense of confidence. The conversation flowed as easily as it had in the pub, their laughter filling the once empty rooms of his house. Elara's presence transformed the space, dispelling the shadows of loneliness that had haunted him for months. As the weeks turned into months, Jacob and Elara's romance deepened. They spent every available moment together, exploring the city, discovering hidden gems, and creating shared experiences. One evening, as they sat by the fireplace, Elara confessed her own struggles with finding affordable accommodation in London. Jacob, without hesitation, invited her to move in with him. Elara, her eyes filled with gratitude and affection, accepted his offer. Their decision marked a turning point in their relationship, a step towards building a life together. As the days turned into weeks, a subtle shift began to occur in Jacob's perception of Elara. He noticed small peculiarities, subtle inconsistencies that niggled at the back of his mind. She had a habit of disappearing for hours without explanation, returning with vague excuses that didn't quite ring true. He noticed strange objects appearing in the house, unusual artifacts that she claimed were family heirlooms. He dismissed these oddities as quirks, eccentricities of a woman he was still getting to know. But a nagging unease began to settle in his heart, a sense of something not quite right. He started to notice other strange occurrences. Shadows flickered in the periphery of his vision, objects moved inexplicably from one place to another, and whispers echoed in the silence of the night. He tried to rationalize these events, attributing them to his overactive imagination, the stress of his demanding work, or the lingering effects of his previous loneliness. But the unsettling feeling persisted, growing stronger with each passing day. The image of Elara's twisted form seared itself into Jacob's memory. He stumbled away from the window, his mind reeling from the shock of the revelation. The woman he had fallen in love with, the woman who had brought light and laughter into his lonely London life, was a creature of nightmare. Her beauty, her charm, her wit, all a facade, a mask concealing a horrifying truth. He felt a profound sense of betrayal, his heart shattered by the realization that his love had been a lie. He couldn't comprehend what he had seen. The contorted limbs, the grotesque face, the unnatural angles, it defied all logic, all reason. He questioned his sanity, wondering if the stress of his new life had finally pushed him over the edge. But the image was too vivid, too real, to be dismissed as a figment of his imagination. He knew, with a chilling certainty, that he had witnessed Elara's true form, a monstrous visage hidden beneath a human guise. The following morning, Jacob returned to the house, his heart heavy with dread. He forced himself to enter, his senses on high alert, bracing himself for a confrontation. But Elara greeted him with her usual warmth and affection, her smile as radiant as ever. There was no trace of the monstrous creature he had seen the night before. He questioned his own perception, wondering if he had imagined the whole thing. but the memory was too vivid, too real, to be dismissed as a hallucination. He found himself living in a state of constant fear, his every interaction with Elara tainted by suspicion. He watched her closely, searching for any sign of the creature he had glimpsed, any flicker of the monstrous visage that haunted his nightmares. He tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy, to play the role of the devoted partner, but his heart was filled with a growing sense of dread. He knew he was living a lie, trapped in a web of deceit and terror. The strange occurrences continued, growing more frequent and more unsettling. Whispers echoed through the house at night, disembodied voices that seemed to penetrate his dreams. He heard his name being called, soft and seductive, yet laced with a chilling undertone. He couldn't pinpoint the source of the whispers, but he felt a growing sense of unease, a certainty that he was not alone in the house. Objects continued to move inexplicably, disappearing from one place to reappear in another. He found his belongings rearranged, his clothes folded in unfamiliar ways, his books placed in a different order on the shelves. He tried to dismiss these occurrences as his own forgetfulness, the product of a stressed and sleep-deprived mind. But the incidents became too frequent, too specific, to be explained away by mere coincidence. He knew with a chilling certainty that something unnatural was happening in his house. He started to see shadows flickering in the periphery of his vision, fleeting glimpses of movement that vanished as quickly as they appeared. The fear that had been simmering beneath the surface of Jacob's consciousness now erupted into a full-blown panic. He knew he had to escape, to get away from Elara and the horrors she represented. He couldn't stay in the house any longer, couldn't bear to live under the constant threat of the unknown. He began to formulate a plan, a desperate attempt to break free from the nightmare that had ensnared him. He knew he had to be careful, to avoid arousing Elara's suspicions. He couldn't risk revealing his knowledge of her true nature, couldn't afford to provoke the creature that lurked beneath her human mask. He started by subtly gathering his belongings, packing a small bag with essential items, clothes, documents, money. He did it discreetly, a little at a time, hiding the bag in the back of his closet, concealed beneath a pile of old clothes. He knew he couldn't take much, couldn't risk raising any alarms. He had to make it look like he was simply going on a business trip, a temporary absence that wouldn't arouse suspicion. The day of his escape arrived, a day he had both longed for and dreaded. He waited until Elara had left for work. He retrieved his hidden bag, his heart pounding. The fear was stronger, the need to escape overpowering all other emotions. He slipped out of the house, closing the door softly behind him. He walked quickly, his senses on high alert. He reached the train station, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He boarded the train, finding a seat near the back. As the train pulled away, he felt a wave of relief wash over him. He was leaving behind the nightmare, escaping the clutches of the creature. He was free. The train journey back to Kingston felt like a lifetime, every mile a step further away from the nightmare he had endured. He was moving away from the darkness and towards the light. As the train pulled into Kingston Station, a wave of relief washed over him. He stepped onto the platform, breathing in the fresh air. He was home. He approached his home, his heart pounding with anticipation. He had returned to them, safe and sound. He was home, and for the first time in months, he felt truly safe. The reunion with his family was a moment of pure joy, a balm to his wounded soul. His wife rushed towards him, her eyes filled with tears of relief and happiness. She embraced him tightly, her arms a haven of warmth and security. His children clung to his legs, their laughter a symphony of innocence and love. He was surrounded by love, enveloped in the comforting embrace of his family. He was home, and he was whole again. As the years passed, the memories of Elara and the horrors he had witnessed in London began to fade. He pushed them deep into the recesses of his mind, burying them beneath layers of normalcy and routine. He focused on his family, his work, and the simple joys of his Kingston life. He created a new reality for himself, a world free from fear and shadows, a sanctuary of love and happiness. He convinced himself that the past was behind him, that the nightmare was over. He rarely thought of London, of the factory, of the house where he had encountered such darkness. The memories were like ghosts, fleeting apparitions that occasionally surfaced in his dreams, but he quickly dismissed them, refusing to allow them to take hold. He built a wall around his heart, a barrier against the pain and fear that threatened to resurface. He chose to live in the present, to embrace the light, to banish the shadows that still lingered in the corners of his mind. He became a pillar of his community, a respected member of society. He was known for his kindness, his generosity, and his unwavering devotion to his family. He was a man who had overcome adversity, a man who had emerged from the darkness stronger and more resilient than ever before. He was a testament to the power of love, the resilience of the human spirit. But beneath the surface of his seemingly perfect life, the buried memories still lurked, waiting for an opportunity to resurface. They were like dormant seeds, buried deep within the soil of his subconscious, ready to sprout at the slightest provocation. He lived with the constant fear that the past would catch up to him, that the nightmare would return to claim him. He was a man haunted by a secret, a prisoner of his own past. Section 4. A Decade of Peace. 9 years passed, 9 years of peace, of normalcy, of family life. Jacob had built a new life in Kingston, filled with love and routine. He buried the memories of his London nightmare. He created a sanctuary, free from fear. He found peace, or so he thought. His children blossomed, his wife by his side, their love a steady flame. They weathered challenges, united by love, but beneath the surface unease lingered. Memories of his London nightmare stirred. He suppressed them, but they were always there. He lived with the knowledge that the past could resurface. Section 1. The London Calling, Again. One crisp autumn morning, a letter arrived bearing the London postmark. Jacob recognized the logo immediately. It was from the same factory he had worked at 9 years prior. His heart pounded as he tore open the envelope. The letter contained a job offer, a request for experienced managers. The factory was offering generous compensation. He hesitated, memories of his past nightmare flooding back. The thought of returning to London filled him with dread. He remembered Elara, the woman who haunted his dreams. He had spent years burying those memories. The thought of reopening that Pandora's box filled him with unease. He shared the offer with his wife. She listened patiently, her eyes filled with concern. She knew the darkness that lurked in his past. She offered her unwavering support. He wrestled with the decision for days. On one hand, the offer was a fantastic opportunity. On the other hand, it meant returning to London. He was torn between his desire for a better future and his fear of the past. Section 2. Return to the haunted house. After much deliberation, Jacob made his decision. He convinced himself that the past was behind him, that he was stronger now. He accepted the job offer, his heart heavy with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. He returned to London, the city a familiar yet alien landscape. To his dismay, the factory had assigned him the same house he had lived in 9 years prior. A chill ran down his spine as he stood before the familiar door. He pushed open the door, stepping into the house, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew, with a chilling certainty, that he had stepped back into the nightmare. The house was eerily familiar, every detail a painful reminder of his past. The furniture, the layout, the very scent of the air. It was as if time had stood still. He walked through the empty rooms, his footsteps echoing on the wooden floors. He felt a growing sense of unease, a feeling of being watched. That night, as he lay in bed, he heard it. The unmistakable creak of the rocking chair. His heart pounded in his chest, his body frozen with fear. The creaking continued, slow and rhythmic, like the heartbeat of some unseen creature. He knew, with a chilling certainty, that he was about to face the nightmare once again. He reached the living room doorway, his hand trembling as he reached for the light switch. He flicked it on, the sudden brightness illuminating the room. There, in the center of the room, sat Elara. She was exactly as he remembered her, her eyes glinting with an unnatural light. Her true form was revealed, her face a grotesque mask. Jacob froze, his blood running cold. "Did you think you could escape me? You are mine, Jacob." He turned to flee, but the door slammed shut behind him. Desperation clawed at Jacob's throat. He searched frantically for an exit, his mind racing with the need to escape. Elara moved with unnatural speed, her talons extended, sharp and menacing. "Love binds us, Jacob," she taunted. "You cannot escape your destiny." He had tried to escape the nightmare, but it had returned to claim him. Alara's talons slashed at his arm, tearing through his flesh. He looked into her eyes, seeing the depths of her madness. As the world faded to black, he heard her chilling whisper, "Forever mine." Darkness enveloped Jacob, a suffocating blanket of despair. He had fought, he had fled, but it had all been for naught. Elara, the witch, had claimed him. He had been a fool to think he could escape her, a fool to believe he could outrun his destiny. It was as if some unseen force had orchestrated his return, a cruel puppet master pulling the strings of his fate. He had known that Elara was waiting for him, patiently biding her time, but it had all been snatched away from him, ripped from his grasp by the cruel hand of fate. He was trapped, forever bound to Elara, to the darkness, to the nightmare. In the suffocating darkness, Jacob's thoughts drifted back to his family. He saw their faces, heard their laughter, felt the warmth of their love. He had made a choice to return to London, a choice that had cost him everything. He had been driven by ambition, by the desire to provide them with a better life, but in the end, he had failed them. He had abandoned them, left them to face the world without him. He had traded their love, their happiness, for a chance at something more. And he had lost it all. He had been so focused on the future, on the promise of a better tomorrow, that he had forgotten to appreciate the present, the precious moments he had with his family. He had been blinded by ambition, by the allure of success, and he had paid the ultimate price. He had lost everything that truly mattered, everything that gave his life meaning. He had sacrificed his family, his happiness, his very soul, at the altar of his own desires. He had made a choice that had led him down a path of darkness and despair. He had chosen to return to London, to confront his past, and in doing so, he had sealed his fate. He had been given a second chance, a chance to escape the nightmare, but he had squandered it. He had been seduced by the promise of a better future, blinded by the allure of ambition, and he had walked willingly into the jaws of the beast. He had made his choice, and now he was living with the consequences. The echo of his choices reverberated through the darkness, a constant reminder of his failures, his regrets, his lost opportunities. He had been given a chance at happiness, a chance at a life filled with love and laughter, but he had thrown it all away. He had made his bed, and now he had to lie in it. He was trapped, forever bound to the darkness, a prisoner of his own making. The darkness wasn't empty. It was filled with whispers, with shadows, with the lingering presence of Elara. He felt her near, her twisted form pressing against him. He couldn't escape her, couldn't break free from her grasp. He was hers, body and soul, a prisoner of her dark desires, forever haunted by her memory, by the life they almost shared, seduced by her beauty, unaware of the danger beneath. He had fallen in love with a monster, paying the ultimate price, forever tainted by her touch, marked by her presence, a living testament to her power, forever haunted.